There is a specific kind of agony that is rarely spoken about out loud. It is a secret, crushing weight carried by millions of faithful people every single day. It is the absolute terrifying despair that grips your heart when you stand over the grave of someone you loved more than your own life, knowing that they died completely separated from God. You know exactly what I am talking about. Perhaps it was a husband who spent his entire life mocking your faith, refusing to step foot inside a church and living entirely for his own ego and pleasure. Perhaps it was a son or a daughter who walked away from the sacraments in their teenage years, fell into the dark, suffocating pit of addiction, and died suddenly of an overdose in a lonely room before they ever had the chance to turn their life around. Or perhaps it was a father who was a good man in the eyes of the world, but who harbored a deep, bitter resentment against the Creator, stubbornly refusing to allow a priest near his hospital bed, even as his lungs were taking their final, desperate breaths. As a faithful believer, you did everything you were supposed to do. You spent years, perhaps decades, on your knees. You wept until your eyes were completely dry. You secretly slipped miraculous medals under their mattress. You paid for masses to be offered for their conversion. You fasted, you begged, you pleaded with heaven to send just one single drop of grace to melt their hardened heart. And yet the unimaginable happened. The heart monitor flatlined. The doctor looked at his watch and called the time of death. The room went silent, and to your physical eyes, it seemed that the devil had won an absolute, horrifying victory. Your loved one died without a confession, without a final prayer, and without a single outward sign of repentance. In the days and weeks that follow a death like this, the world tries to offer you comfort, but it is a comfort built entirely on lies. Well-meaning friends will pat your shoulder at the funeral and say things like, "They are in a better place now," or, "They are looking down on us from heaven." But if you truly believe in the gospel, if you truly understand the absolute reality of heaven, hell, and the necessity of sanctifying grace, those empty secular phrases offer you absolutely zero peace. Instead, they sound like a cruel joke. In the dark, silent hours of the night, your mind is tortured by the horrific, paralyzing image of your loved ones suffering in the eternal, unquenchable fire of the abyss. The guilt threatens to crush your chest. You ask yourself endless, agonizing questions. Did I not pray hard enough? Did I say the wrong thing to them? Why did God completely ignore my tears and allow them to die in a state of mortal sin? This specific despair is the ultimate final weapon of the enemy. The devil knows he cannot destroy your faith through ordinary temptations, so he attempts to destroy you through your love for the deceased. He sits right next to you in your grief and whispers a logical, devastating lie. He tells you that the books are closed. He tells you that your prayers were a pathetic waste of time. He points to the cold, unresponsive body in the casket and says, "Look at them. They died rejecting God. They belong to me now. And there is absolutely nothing your prayers can do to change it." He wants you to believe that the physical appearance of death is the entire, absolute truth of the situation. He wants you to believe that the moment the brain stops functioning and the lungs stop pulling in oxygen, the story is over. But what if I told you that the physical appearance of death is the greatest illusion in the human experience? What if I told you that in the terrifying, invisible microsecond between the final heartbeat and the eternal judgment, an epic, completely unseen battle of unfathomable mercy takes place? You're about to hear a truth that will take the crushing weight off your shoulders and shatter the demonic lie of despair into a million pieces. Before we uncover this breathtaking reality, I need you to join this community of spiritual warfare. We are exposing the lies of the enemy and bringing the forgotten, life-saving truths of the saints back to a world that is drowning in hopelessness. Please subscribe to this channel right now, and to actively fight back against the spirit of despair that wants to convince you that your loved ones are lost, I want you to go down to the comments right now and write a declaration of absolute trust. Type the words, "Jesus, I surrender my loved ones to your unfathomable mercy." Writing this is not just leaving a comment. It is a profound spiritual act of placing the souls you love the most directly into the bleeding hands of the Savior. To understand what actually happens in that final, terrifying split second of human life, we must turn to the private diaries of one of the greatest mystics of the 20th century, Saint Faustina Kowalska. Saint Faustina was not a theologian reading dusty books in a library. She was a humble, uneducated nun who was chosen by Jesus Christ himself to be the secretary of his divine mercy. Christ opened the veil of eternity for her and allowed her to record exactly how his mercy operates at the very limits of human existence. In paragraph 1486 of her diary, Jesus revealed a secret about the moment of death that completely defies our human logic and our strict, rigid understanding of justice. We look at a person dying in a coma, or a person who dies instantly in a horrific car crash, and we assume that because their physical brain is destroyed or unconscious, they are no longer capable of making a choice. We assume that if they were in a state of mortal sin a minute before the crash, they are instantly and irrevocably damned the minute after. But Jesus revealed to Saint Faustina that the human soul does not operate at the slow, clumsy speed of the physical body. When the body shuts down, when the doctors pronounce the patient legally dead, the soul does not immediately fall asleep or vanish. Instead, the spiritual intellect becomes hyper-lucid. It becomes more awake and more aware than it ever was during its earthly life. It is in this exact, hidden, silent moment, completely invisible to the weeping nurses and the grieving family members standing around the hospital bed, that the Creator of the universe performs his final desperate act of love. Jesus told Saint Faustina that he personally visits the soul of the dying sinner. He does not send an angel. He does not send a saint. He goes himself, and he does not go as a terrifying, wrathful judge carrying a ledger of their sins. He comes as the merciful Savior, bleeding from his wounds, begging the soul to accept his forgiveness. But the most shocking part of this revelation is not just that he visits them. The most shocking part is how many times he tries, and what he does when the soul, heavily addicted to its own pride and blinded by a lifetime of darkness, attempts to reject him even in the very jaws of death. You are about to discover the mechanics of the 3 secret visits, and how a soul that looks completely dead to the world can still be snatched from the fires of hell in a silent, invisible dialogue that changes eternity forever. When the physical heart beats for the very last time, the monitors in the hospital room emit that long, continuous, devastating tone. The nurses step back, the doctor records the official time of death, and the family collapses into a weeping, agonizing embrace. To every single human eye in that room, the life of the person in the bed has definitively ended. The body is completely still, the eyes are closed, and there is absolutely no outward sign of consciousness, emotion, or life. The medical professionals will tell you that the brain has ceased all electrical activity, but Saint Faustina Kowalska, writing under the direct inspiration of Jesus Christ, reveals that this exact moment of physical silence is actually the loudest, most critical, and most incredibly active moment in the entire existence of that human being. The soul does not vanish into a void, nor does it instantly teleport to a courtroom of cold, unfeeling justice. Instead, while the family is weeping over what they believe is a finished story, an intensely private, invisible dialogue begins in the deepest, most inaccessible sanctuary of the spiritual intellect. It is a dialogue between a soul that is trembling on the absolute edge of the abyss and a God who simply refuses to let them go without a fight. Jesus revealed to Saint Faustina that his merciful heart is so profoundly moved by the approaching death of a sinner that he personally initiates a secret visitation. He approaches the soul, not with lightning and thunder, but with the gentle, radiant light of a desperate father trying to wake a sleeping child inside a burning house. He speaks directly to the core of the person, a place the devil cannot touch, and he says, "Soul, hear the voice of your merciful Father." But what happens when the pure, blinding light of Christ hits a soul that has spent its entire earthly life hiding in the dark? You must understand the psychology of a soul that has lived in mortal sin for decades. This is a person who has built their entire identity on pride, on anger, on lust, or on the absolute rejection of religion. When this soul suddenly sees the undeniable, burning reality of Jesus Christ standing before them, the reaction is not immediate joy. The reaction is sheer, paralyzing terror. The light of God is so pure that it instantly exposes every single stain, every lie, and every filthy attachment the soul has ever harbored. The soul feels an agonizing shame. Because it has grown accustomed to the darkness, the light literally hurts. And so in this first secret visit, the hardened soul does the unthinkable. It shrinks back. It cowers in the shadows of its own guilt, and it actively rejects the hand that is reaching down to save it. It turns away from God. You might think that after being rejected to his face, the creator of the universe, the sovereign judge who has every legal right to condemn that soul to hell right then and there, would simply turn his back and let justice run its terrifying course. Human logic tells us that if someone spits in your face after you offer them a lifeline, you walk away. But you do not know the relentless, pursuing, almost scandalous nature of divine mercy. Jesus told Saint Faustina that he does not give up after the first rejection. The love of Christ is a pursuing fire. He waits and then he approaches the soul a second time. This time he speaks louder to the spiritual intellect. He pours out even more grace, trying to break through the thick, hardened crust of the sinner's ego. But this second visit triggers a massive, desperate counterattack from the kingdom of darkness. The devil knows he is losing his grip, so he plays his final, most terrifying card. He does not tempt the soul with earthly pleasures anymore, because the body is dead and the world is gone. Instead, he tempts the soul with absolute crushing despair. The demons swarm the spiritual vision of the dying person, projecting a horrifying slideshow of every single sin they ever committed. They amplify the guilt until it feels like a mountain crushing the chest. They whisper a devastating lie directly into the mind of the soul, saying, "Look at what you have done. Look at how you lived. You mocked God for 50 years. You destroyed your family. You are filthy. You are unforgivable. God is not here to save you. He is here to mock you before he throws you into the fire. It is too late for you." The soul, overwhelmed by the reality of its own wickedness, actually begins to believe the demonic lie. It agrees with the devil. It feels that stepping into the pure light of Christ would be an unbearable hypocrisy. It feels that it truly belongs in the darkness. The despair is so thick, so heavy, and so suffocating that the soul is completely paralyzed. It cannot speak. It cannot move toward the light, and it begins to sink heavily toward the eternal abyss under the sheer weight of its own unpardoned guilt. The second visit seems to have failed, and the soul is now teetering on the absolute brink of eternal damnation. But what does a father do when he sees his child drowning in a freezing ocean, completely paralyzed by fear, unable to even reach out and grab the life preserver? A father does not stand on the deck of the ship and yell instructions. A father dives into the freezing water. And this brings us to the third and final visit, the absolute precipice of eternity, where the fate of the soul is decided in a fraction of a heartbeat. Jesus told Saint Faustina that when the soul is completely deafened by despair and blinded by the demonic illusions of hell, he descends one last time. This third visit is not just a gentle invitation. It is an overwhelming, majestic explosion of supreme grace. Christ unleashes a torrent of mercy so powerful that it temporarily shatters the demonic illusions and pushes the screaming devils away, giving the soul one final, perfectly clear, unhindered moment of absolute free will. In this ultimate microsecond, Jesus does not ask the soul to perform a grand act of penance. He does not ask for a list of apologies. The soul has no time, no body, and no ability to undo the damage it caused on earth. Jesus simply opens his bleeding hands, reveals the unfathomable depths of his love, and asks the soul to make one microscopic, completely internal movement of the will. He just needs a crack in the armor. He just needs the soul to stop fighting him. The soul does not even need to speak. It only needs to let out a spiritual sigh of surrender. It only needs to look at the bleeding wounds of Christ and feel a tiny spark of sorrow, a fleeting thought of, "Lord, have mercy on me." But this incredibly beautiful reality leads us to the most urgent, terrifying question of your entire life. If Jesus is doing all the heavy lifting in that final split second, why do so many people still end up in hell? What happens if the soul, even after being bathed in this final ocean of grace, looks at the face of God, fully understands the choice, and still chooses to say no? As we move into the final, sobering revelation of Saint Faustina, we will uncover the chilling reality of the soul that forcefully shuts the door on God, and exactly how your prayers right now, today, are the actual weapons Mary uses to ensure your loved one says yes in that terrifying final second. O Geminides, The third and final visit of Jesus Christ to the dying soul is the ultimate, breathtaking climax of human existence. It is the moment where the entire tapestry of a person's life is reduced to a single, microscopic point of absolute decision. Jesus revealed to Saint Faustina that when he descends for this final intervention, he does not come with arguments, and he does not come with demands. He simply stands before the trembling, terrified soul, radiating an ocean of unconditional love from his bleeding wounds, and he speaks directly to their spiritual intellect. He says, "My child, do not run away from your Father. I myself have come to you to offer you grace." He gives the soul one final, brilliantly clear, unhindered moment of absolute free will. The demonic illusions are temporarily pushed back, the deafening noise of despair is silenced, and the soul is left entirely alone with its Creator. But it is precisely here, in this silent sanctuary of the final microsecond, that we encounter the most terrifying mystery of the human condition, the absolute staggering power of free will. God is infinite love, and because He is love, He will never force a soul to spend eternity with Him against its will. Heaven is not a prison for the reluctant. It is a kingdom for those who desire the light. Saint Faustina records the chilling reality that there are souls who, even when bathed in this final, desperate outpouring of divine mercy, look directly at the face of God and feel nothing but a visceral, burning hatred. Their pride has become so heavily calcified, so deeply ingrained into their spiritual identity after decades of feeding their own ego and mocking the truth, that they actually prefer the eternal torment of hell over the humiliation of bowing their head and admitting they were wrong. They forcefully shut the door on God. They curse the light because it exposes the filth they have grown to love. This is the true, horrifying definition of damnation. God does not angrily throw them into the pit. They throw themselves into it, plunging voluntarily into the darkness because it is the only place where they can remain the absolute God of their own twisted, isolated universe. Knowing that this level of terrifying, hardened obstinacy exists, how can you ever have peace? When you are standing at the gravesite of a rebellious husband or a wandering child, how can you possibly know if they made the right choice in that final fraction of a second? This is the exact moment where your decades of agonizing, seemingly unanswered prayers finally make their explosive, world-altering impact. You see, when a soul is hovering in that ultimate balance, paralyzed by fear and staring at the blinding light of Christ, they need massive spiritual leverage. They are too weak to fight their own pride. They have absolutely zero spiritual capital of their own. But you do. Every single rosary you prayed in the middle of the night, every mass you offered for them when they were out mocking your faith, every tear you shed in the desperate silence of your bedroom, none of it evaporated. The Virgin Mary took all of those prayers, preserved them in the treasury of heaven, and she brings them directly into that invisible hospital room. She uses your prayers as a massive, blinding shield to block the final assaults of the demons, and she pours the grace of your intercession directly into the heart of your loved one, giving them the supernatural strength they need to let go of their pride. Your relentless, ignored intercession is the exact spiritual currency that purchases their final moment of clarity. We are fighting a relentless, brutal digital war against a culture of despair that desperately wants you to believe that death is the absolute end, and that your prayers for lost sinners are a pathetic waste of time. We are dedicating our lives to digging up these profound, life-saving revelations from the saints to give you the heavy spiritual weapons you need to fight for your family. If this message has lifted the crushing weight of guilt off your chest today, if it has given you a renewed, burning hope for the eternal souls of those you love, I am asking you to stand with us on the front lines. Please consider becoming a member of this channel right now. For just $2 a month, an amount so unbelievably small that it is less than a cheap cup of coffee or a quick Uber ride, you become a vital, foundational pillar of this mission. Your membership gives you access to exclusive, members-only videos where we dive even deeper into the hidden mysteries of the afterlife and advanced spiritual warfare, giving you the practical tools to protect your home. But most importantly, your $2 keeps the lights on and allows us to broadcast this exact message of hope to a mother who is standing at a gravesite today, completely ready to give up on God. Please, click the join button below and help us shatter the darkness. Because of the unfathomable mercy of God and the sheer unstoppable power of your intercession, Saint Faustina assures us that we must never, under any circumstances, despair for a soul. Jesus told her that we often do not know what happens between him and the soul in its final hidden moments. A person can die a gruesome, tragic death. They can die of an overdose in a lonely alleyway. They can die in a sudden, violent car crash without a priest anywhere in sight. The world looks at the tragic scene, looks at their sinful past, and instantly pronounces them damned. But the world is completely blind. In the hidden sanctuary of the soul, a miracle of supreme divine mercy may have just occurred. The soul, realizing its utter ruin in that final microsecond, may have cried out an internal silent scream of, "Jesus, forgive me." And that single perfect act of contrition, fueled entirely by the prayers of a faithful mother or wife, is absolute legal grounds for salvation. The devil is robbed of his prize at the very last second, and the soul is snatched from the jaws of the dragon. However, you must understand that if they are saved in this dramatic, last-second manner, they are saved as though passing through fire. A soul that repents in the final microsecond escapes the eternal, unquenchable flames of hell, but they are still completely covered in the heavy, toxic rust of a lifetime of unrepented sin. They are not ready to enter the blinding, pure light of the beatific vision. They plunge willingly and gratefully into the agonizing, purifying fires of purgatory to be scrubbed clean. And this is exactly why your mission does not end when they lower the casket into the ground. Do not listen to the modern secular lie that simply says rest in peace and forgets about them. They are completely helpless in purgatory. They cannot pray for themselves. They cannot shorten their own sentence. They are entirely dependent on you, the church militant. The tears you shed at the funeral must now be transformed into fierce spiritual action. You must continue to offer masses. You must continue to pray the rosary, and you must offer your daily physical and emotional sufferings for their swift release. You are no longer praying for their conversion. You are now paying their spiritual bail. You are dropping buckets of cool water onto their purifying flames. The silence of God during their earthly life was never a rejection. It was a brilliant, terrifying, divine strategy. He allowed them to reach the absolute edge so that his mercy could shine brightest in the dark, and he used your relentless, stubborn prayers to pull them back from the brink. So dry your eyes, lift up your head, and step back onto the battlefield. Your loved ones are not lost to the darkness. They are simply waiting in the fire for you to finish the work you started.